I now call the Des Moines regular City Council meeting for Thursday, December 1st to order. And with that, I will have Deputy Mayor Tracy Buxton lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, before I go into correspondence, I know several of you, and you're more than welcome to speak tonight, but I know something of interest to you is on January 26th, we will have the study session concerning the marina development. So I just wanted you to know that before we got started. With that, City Clerk, let's go ahead and record the record, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let the record reflect that all 7 council members are present. And do we have any correspondence?
There's no additional correspondence outside the emails already received by council.
All right. It's now time for public comments from the public. I would just like to remind those participants that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be removed from the meeting. You have 3 minutes to speak. All right. First on, I have Miss Sherry Halko. Is that correct? Okay.
I'm Sherry Halko. I live in the Marina District, and I'm really concerned about the plan for the hotel. You had it originally set for parcel A, and it turned out it was too small, so now you want to develop the marina. You want to put the hotel in the parking lot. And from my standpoint of watching people down there, you're going to take a lot away from the city. You might think you're going to bring in visitors, but maybe you will, maybe you won't. The estimates I've heard of the amount of people you think are going to come to visit here, I think are greatly overestimated. And you're not even considering the families with little kids down there that are learning to ride their bicycles, junior high kids riding skateboards, teenagers getting prom pictures taken, all of that. When you bring that hotel in here and you put it down there, all that's going to go away. That hotel is not going to want little kids riding bikes down there, families walking along in front of their view property. And it's really disappointing that you're not listening to the public. We've all voiced our opinions. We put flyers out. You all know that. Everyone I've talked to down there and up around the city where I've been walking, none of them want it there. They all want you guys to pick a place in downtown. Develop that. I realize that those are privately owned properties, but those people I believe would be willing to sell if you reinforced health lots. I walk that downtown area all the time. Those vacant lots, you have got grass grown, have got garbage in them, and all that's doing is causing a health problem. So to me, if you made them mow that down and keep that down and keep the garbage out, and they would be willing to sell and let you put a hotel there. And you'd have a better view because you could go higher. You could put your parking underneath it and you could go your 4 or 5 stories, what you want to do. And I don't understand why you as a council are so eager to take away the one piece of property that everyone in Des Moines enjoys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halko. Moving on to Mr. Bill Bishop.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I want to follow up on a little bit on what Ms. Halko just said, and I appreciate that you're having the study session. Is that a regular city council time on a weekday? And so, yes, as I understand, though, your Mayor, I almost called you Your Honor. The problem is we get these little sound bites. Oh, I'm sorry. We get these little sound bites at this meeting. We don't ever really have the opportunity to sit down and engage with you all and ask you questions. And as I understand, the study session that you mentioned that's going to take place in January is the same sort of thing. I think we're all just spectators other than you and the people you invite. And so I'm here tonight to ask you to consider doing something really special about engaging the public on this matter. And that is, I would like to see the city go back and do something like the public participation plan that was created in 2019 in connection with the SMP review. This is a very extensive document that lays out, I think, a whole bunch of different constituencies that need to be, considered and contacted in regard to a project of this magnitude. I think this would be a really, now, I understand a lot of this is regulatory. This is required by the state, I believe, and you've got federal agencies, state agencies. I don't know that you need to do that, but it does talk about the neighborhoods being contacted, the public being engaged, a series of meetings, a series of surveys, a whole lot of things that you could do, and then we would feel that we have a chance to engage with you and talk to you. As Sherry just said, or indicated, all we can do is really listen to you. You can listen to us for 3 minutes at a time here on a meeting. And so I'm going to add this to my comments to the record here. I know you probably have already all seen this, but I think it's a really well thought out document. I guess it was done by one of the planners here at the city. I think if you adopted something like this, we could really have a good conversation with you all about what your plans are and whether this is the best plan for the development of the marina, because I don't know that I know we haven't really had much discussion about it since you moved the site for the hotel out to the front of the parking lot, right adjacent to the water, which is surprising to a lot of us, but it came sort of late in the game. I think we need to discuss whether that is the best use of the property down there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Just to really clarify the content of the meeting or the way we vision it being
Yes.
laid out, I'm sure the city manager probably will clear up a few other things, is we plan on a full presentation prior to public comment and so forth, and then we would have a discussion on it. That's kind of the basic layout, just so you know.
We will have
So you'll have an opportunity to hear the information and see the information as we see it, and then comment from there.
We can, okay.
Okay.
And that is a regular full session here? in the
Yes,
meeting? Yeah.
we're actually, we've actually considered possibly finding a different location for a bigger venue as well.
That might be wise too, because I know this will be crowded. I think if people understand that's the agenda, I think they will
Yeah,
appreciate the
I just wanted
opportunity.
you to sir, I just wanted you to understand
Right.
that we hear you and we have something in our vision for
All
that.
right, thank you.
All right, moving on to Mr. Mike Halco.
Good evening. Yes, I am related to the first speaker for the last 48 years, and glad to be here. I also have lived over the marina for 8 years, and I've seen all the activity that my wife and some of the other people have talked about. So I don't want to beat that to death, but I have to say, if you're not living there to see it, you can't appreciate the amount that happens. I'd like to look at it from a business point of view. You would get a much better view up on the top. And if you put it up there, the people that you're looking to attract would be near the downtown area. They would support your existing restaurants, businesses, things like that. If you put it down below, you're going to attract businesses to support it. Not only will those businesses be now competing with the people that are already here, the existing businesses will be at a disadvantage location-wise. So I do believe in competition, but I also believe it's the city's responsibility to take a look and take care of their existing businesses first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halco. Moving on to Charlene Balcaz. Did I say that correctly? Probably not. Bacalzo. Your O looks like an E, Charlene. And now that I saw you, I know who you are. Okay.
Yeah, hi Matt. I'm going to share with you my thoughts regarding this same issue. But as a homeowner and business owner in Des Moines for many years, my husband and I have always been proud to share our marina with family and friends and visitors alike, and out-of-town guests, for example. We have been supportive and excited to see the progress in our little town. However, the newly renovated north parking lot is not the right place for a boutique hotel. There are several locations in the city that, and in the downtown district, that would be better, as has been mentioned already. And I just think the north parking lot should remain an open space for all to enjoy. So I also feel that the downtown has no identity, and yet many citizens and visitors support our businesses and restaurants. So I think it would be a good idea for the city to invite the existing 82 business operators to City Hall and maybe have a session of getting some feedback from your existing businesses and see if we could come up with some brainstorming for future development in our little town. So, and then there's just common sense things like, what if it fails? What if because I don't think our city can support a little boutique hotel. We don't have the shops and restaurants like Edmonds, for example. We don't have the footprint of other marinas that are like Shilshole Bay, for example. So I just feel that it's really not a good location. But not that we're against a cute little hotel. That'd be nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Deanna Clifford Schnod. Did I have that close? Okay, Schradel. Oh, I see the D and the L are kind of together. Okay, thank you.
I just want to share my thoughts since I have been part of Des Moines for many years. The city's new plan for the north parking lot does not fit the lives of the local residents that come to enjoy the open spaces our marina provides. As to the statements published in the Des Moines City Currents under the heading from the mayor, that it is once again time for the city to have leadership and courage to leverage the assets of the marina to propel our community forward into something greater. Not one person that we have conveyed the information that was gathered from the September 27th meeting has agreed with your decisions. In fact, the people are very disappointed in the direction that you are going. This marina area is the place local residents come to walk, connect with their friends, and enjoy the views from the North Lot area. People shop at the local businesses for coffee or lunch to enjoy in their cars. With the city's new plan for the north parking lot, all of these daily activities will be destroyed. Development needs to be based on changes that benefit the daily lives of the Des Moines residents that are paying big-time property taxes to live here. The north parking lot redevelopment has cost local residents lots of money that was spent on a place local residents will no longer be able to come and enjoy. Why would the city leaders give up the local residents' open space to a private investor for a hotel which only benefits needs to be based on changes that benefit the daily lives of the Des Moines residents, the ones that are paying property taxes to live here? A boutique hotel is a large structure and it does not benefit our residents. Again, not one person that we have spoke to agrees with your ideas for change. Development needs to be based on changes that benefit the daily lives of our local residents. Your plan does not provide this.
Thank you, Ms. Clifford. Schradel, right? Okay. Schradel, okay. We will now move on to the city manager report. Go ahead, Michael. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. First, we have quite a number of issues to go over this evening as it's coming toward the end of the year. I have Scott Wilkins, our harbor master, has a brief announcement.
Evening. Thank you, Michael, Mayor, City Council, Scott with the Des Moines Marina. I just want to remind, and Tara's handing out some invites for next Wednesday. We're having our tenant appreciation down on the docks from 7 to 9 at the marina down there. We'll be serving some hot chocolate and chili and cornbread, and we should have maybe some live music and some things like that. So I'd just like to invite the council and city staff here to join our tenants and come down and say hi. It's from 7 to 9 next Wednesday. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We'll skip Mark, who was unable to be here on a separate issue. Council, I just want to mention a couple of things. There are 3 items on your consent calendar tonight. One is a kind of ongoing contract amendment with Grant Fredericks. Grant has been instrumental in our efforts to work successfully with Sound Transit on the light rail extension and ultimately on the 509 Gateway project. That's a contract that's been in place for a number of years. There's a small increase in that amendment, but that is Grant's responsibility. I think Councilmember Steinmetz made the point recently that there is a valuable difference between hiring a full-time employee and working with a consultant. In this instance, as with these others that I'll talk about in a minute, they provide very specific services for very specific reasons. And so we're able to kind of focus their compensation based on their performance relative to issues the city needs addressed. So that would be Grant. Item number 3, you have Peter Phillips, who will be doing a presentation in a minute on our ferry service, the final report. And the bottom line with Peter, simply stated, is we just have not paid him enough, to be honest. He's accomplished a huge amount for the city at a very modest return, and we anticipate with council direction to continue to move forward in that area. And so I think this is just an issue of fairness in the market. And finally, we have our Marina Redevelopment Consulting Contract Amendment with Robert Holmes, the Holmes Group. And Robert is the developer of Harbor Steps in Seattle, has provided all kind of information, support, help, insight as to how we would go about developing marina steps here, connecting the downtown to the marina. So those are the 3 contracts that you'll see on consent tonight and the reasons for those being there. I want to also tell you that we're very excited and share with the public that we have the Metro Community Shuttle that goes from the light rail station, Angle Lake Light Rail, down through the business park, down to the marina, the downtown, and back. That was originally a pilot project that we did in partnership with Metro, and after 3 years of service, and after even in the midst of COVID, the ridership goals were met, and Metro has decided to take that on as fixed route service. So it will be ongoing in perpetuity, and they will pay for it. So that will save the city significantly. We're very pleased because once again, that along with the ferry service that we'll talk about in a minute, represent successful multimodal transportation efforts on behalf of the city, which absolutely portends for the future, addresses issues like climate change, helps relieve congestion, provides alternative means of access and mobility. So it's a big step. Council, I want to give you an update on the communications RFQ that council had approved, I think, a 5-2 vote to proceed with identifying a consultant that could help the city identify changes or potential revisions, modifications to our communication with the public. And so we've developed the RFQ. We have a draft now we'll be sending out. And the way that works ideally was that first the consultant that's chosen will interview each council member for like an hour each. If all of I don't know if the council members voted against this want to participate, but at any rate, everyone else will have an hour interview, and the consultant will write up the results of those interviews. And from that, council can then help derive what the scope of work should be moving forward. So we're excited about that opportunity, but we've moved forward to have a draft, which we will probably put out on the street at the beginning of the year, rather than late now. On December 12th, we're going to hold a senior staff retreat. We did one of these a number of years ago, just to kind of recollect ourselves after COVID. And we've also seen a number of changes in our succession planning, people taking on new responsibilities, new directors, and so forth. So it's an opportunity for us to do some team building. We've invited the council to come individually to the retreat, spend 15 minutes or so talking about your vision for the city or how you see our government, how it functions. And we'll send out kind of a list of ideas that may be of use to you in your presentations. Just come and talk with staff. And we're looking forward to that. As the mayor mentioned, on the 26th of January, we anticipate holding a council study session on marina redevelopment. Looking forward to that. I think the only point I would make is that nothing has been decided at this point. The north bulkhead was simply shown as an option. And if it's not the appropriate or acceptable option, then it, in all likelihood, would not happen. So we value your input, but there has been no decisions made one way or the other at all. It was just after the bulkhead was renovated and replaced, is there a highest and best use that is not just simply a parking lot? And that was the rationale, and we look forward to your comments and to a much fuller discussion about that. Okay, I'm going to move on. I think, Bonnie, I'm going to switch places here and ask you to talk about public comment.
Thank you, Michael. Mayor, Council, good evening. I'm Bonnie Wilkins, your Chief Administrative Officer. And I'm just here to kind of hopefully clear up some confusion about public comment and how it was handled during the pandemic and how it's being handled now. When the governor suspended all in-person meetings, Tara and myself and our IT department worked with IT to try to develop a mechanism for people to still stay engaged with council while we're meeting remotely. And we created that nifty little form we had on the website. People could submit it, they could join the meeting and give their public comment, or simply just have their comments and the subject and their name read into the record. Well, fast forward and we're meeting in person, that form kind of stopped being to the purpose that it was intended for. We found a lot of errors. We tried reworking it a few times. It didn't work, so we pulled it off the website. So what we have now is people come in person and give public comment, and you also receive emails from people for correspondence. Now that never changed. People have always been able to email the council. That function has been on the website since before, as long as I can remember. So you receive email correspondence and you receive in-person public comment. All of that prior to coming back in person has always been put onto the website, to the packet corresponding with the meeting on the web. What had kind of been due to lack of, all the things happening with coming back in person and changes and what have you, we hadn't done the in-person correspondences to the packets, but Tara has gone back and has put probably almost all of them onto the website. So to recap, in-person comments are in person. Sometimes they have supplements that go into the packet, but all the communication that you receive, all the emails, our correspondence, and there are being attached to the packet. And again, emailing the council has never changed, even during the pandemic. We would receive multiple emails. We've received multiple emails on this one particular subject. And you can go on our web. We have this great thing called Council Meeting Center. It's under your government, Council Meeting Center, and you can virtually search for anything that you want to search for. Any keyword you can put in hotel, you'll get pages and pages and pages of data that says hotel. It'll take you right to the minute when I said hotel. It'll take you right to that particular moment in the video, documents, public comment that we received, correspondence that we received, It's a great feature. I've mentioned it many times, but you should check it out. It's really great. I think that's about it. Any questions?
Thanks, Bonnie. I think,
Questions on this one?
yeah, let me just say, the point being, as has always been, is to facilitate and encourage, support, and be transparent with input from our public.
Absolutely.
All right, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So, okay, so how would you do it? If the public, so you're saying that every email that was sent, to citycouncil@DesMoinesWA.gov is accessible via the council meeting center?
It's accessible by the website.
So how do you do it?
Click on the website, click on the link, and it emails all of council. Under your government, there's a city council page.
No. I mean, maybe I heard you wrong, and I'm sorry. Are you saying that the public can review the emails that people have received? So I'm just asking, what's the procedure? Is there like a little,
Well, so for instance, tonight's packet includes all the ones we've received under correspondence. So you go onto the website, you click onto tonight's meeting date, you click on the agenda packet. There's links to all of the particular items on the agenda. You click on correspondence. All of the emails that we've received from the last meeting to this meeting are there. If you're looking for a specific person, type in their name. It'll come up.
Okay, I'm just asking what the process, like call me silly, but there's, you go to the website, is there like a little menu that says, I would like to look at all of the council emails, for a particular packet?
You would go to the website and you could search by packet, or you could put in a search term. There's no place that says, here are all of our emails. We attach them as part of the record to the particular council packet. So you could you could say hotel, you could say your own name, you could say whatever, and it will pull all that data, pages and pages, and then, you can just search through and look. It gives you kind of an outline of what that is, words before, words after, so it's a pretty.
Yeah, so thank you. Is there, you're saying that the public comment form, that there were technical problems, that it didn't always work correctly?
Not necessarily. When we went back in person, people were getting confused. It wasn't working, it wasn't serving the purpose it served when we were meeting remote. So for ease of confusion, and we tried several different things to make it be more clear, it just wasn't working in that same manner that we had.
In your mind, do you consider, like a public comment, theoretically, you sign in with your name and your address, and you identify who you are, to differentiate from, like with the grocery guys who wanted the hazard pay, we'd get 100 emails, but they'd be from some guy in Utah or, in your mind, do you differentiate in terms of public comment in knowing the identity of the person?
No.
Okay.
We're all about transparency and neutrality. You send it in, we're going to attach it to the packet.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Michael?
Okay, thanks, Bonnie.
Oh, wait. Councilmember Oxiger, do you want questions of Bonnie?
Yes.
Hey, Bonnie. Councilmember Oxiger has some
So-
questions.
So actually, I have the packet up right now, but the emails are not attached until after the meeting, or are they attached before?
Correct, because once we prepare the packet on Friday, we use iCompass, so it's quite technical. So once we prepare the packet on Friday for tonight's meeting, so last Friday for tonight, that stands as it is. Tomorrow, what staff does is they go back in and they will then collect all of that information and attach it to the packet, because you gotta take it down, put it back on. It's kind of a little bit of a technical mess, so to speak. So we try to do it one time afterwards rather than every single time we get an email. So if you go back to the meeting prior to tonight, you probably will see them all.
Okay. So it's it's behind the meeting, it's not for the meeting.
Right. We always, we call it a cleanup on Friday. We get a lot of supplementals, the PowerPoints, people will come in. I think this gentleman said he had something supplemental to his comment. We take all of that and we kind of clean up on Friday and we put it in, well, put it all in order, make it all as pretty as we can make it, and then put it back on the web.
Okay, so the public should understand that if you come to the council and speak, it is heard by us in real time, but if you send an email, it's not going to show for the rest of the public. We will have seen it, but for the rest of the public, they will not have seen it until after the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Bonnie, in your mind, do you differentiate, you know, let's say some people write all the time, citycouncil@DesMoinesWA.gov, you know, I'm bothered about a tree. I have a particular complaint, let's say, okay. How does one differentiate between that and a public comment meant for an issue, you know, for the council? Because obviously, most of the time you know, forward it on to staff as being an item, you know, just to be dealt with, customer service.
Just that if it comes in and it's an item that needs to be dealt with, we'll send it off to staff and attach it to the packet.
Okay, so even if somebody, you know, writes in about their, you know, their drain, you know, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now.
Michael, the
Okay.
floor is back to you.
Better sit down right away. Okay, so now it's really a pleasure to have a presentation. It's essentially a PowerPoint summarizing the final report on our passenger ferry service pilot that just completed in October. And Mr. Peter Phillips is going to give a presentation, and then tomorrow we are going to be publishing on our website the final report. And there will be two aspects to that report. Additionally, we received, as you will see later in this, over 111 comments on social media, and we received 111 positive comments. Also, we did a survey of passengers, and that will also be put up on the website. And all of the information has been exceedingly positive toward this project. Peter, with that, you can take it away, and by way of introduction, Peter knows everything about ferries in the state of Washington, so we were able to avail ourselves of his knowledge. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Michael, for the kind words, and kind words earlier as well. It's really been a delight working on this project. Mayor, council members, I'm here to present the final report on the pilot ferry project. Next slide, please. So I've been involved in this project for the entirety, probably started back in 2019 when Michael and I began to talk about it. I felt that because of the marina redevelopment, specifically the bulkhead redevelopment, that there was an opportunity. The congestion around, anecdotally, we all know how hard it is to get to Seattle. Fast ferries I've been involved with for many years, going back to 2003, and I knew that not only were they an efficient way, a sustainable way, but they're also really add to our quality of life. So began to work with the city in July formally of 2020. We determined that the first thing that was needed was a demand study. We commissioned that from an objective third-party expert. And we determined that despite COVID, this was in August of 2019 that the study was done, that people wanted a ferry and they would use it. And of course, that was all modeling and surveys and stuff, but it was enough to tell us that we could move forward and do the next step, which was a feasibility study. We completed that in 2021, and we found that we had the infrastructure right now to put in a ferry. We didn't have to build terminals. We didn't have to add anything. We didn't have to hire people. At the terminal side, it was feasible to do a ferry service. So in April, you will remember that you approved to move forward with the pilot, and we began implementation, and the result was what I hope that many of you rode this summer, a pilot project which ran from August 10th through October 9th, running from the Des Moines Marina to Belle Harbor in Seattle and back. Next So in early 2022, the City Council provisionally allocated almost $1 million for this ferry service. When we came back, we recognized we wouldn't need nearly that much, and in fact, we spent substantially less than that. $220,000 was spent on the ferry service, and this is gross costs. Those were underwritten in part by what we call fare box recovery, which I'll get to later on, and that's what passengers pay for tickets, which is not included in the 220. So next slide, please. So the city of Des Moines was the leader in this service. They funded it. It's unique in the state of Washington, in my experience, that a city has been able to do this on their own, and for that you should all be recognized, because it's quite an accomplishment, really, to have been able to do this. But we did have partners. We had the Port of Seattle, which was the terminal operator at the north end. They operate Belle Harbor Marina, and they were, because of their unique nature as a public agency, able to provide some in-kind elements, and most notably marketing up there, as well as signage and such. We worked with the tribes. I should mention, we worked with Maritime Consulting Partners. They're a ferry operator. They've been working, I've known Greg for, 30 years, and they operate ferries around the country under contract, hundreds. And they were our lead operations partner. And so they were very cognizant of the need to avoid conflicts with the tribes and engage early with the tribes and the Coast Guard, which we did. So that went very smoothly, no problems there. We worked with the Puget Sound Regional Council, which is kind of a coordinating body and a funding source, ultimately, that oversees transportation and land use for all of the regional counties around here, and they were very helpful. And we worked with the Seattle Southside Regional Tourism Agency with regards to promotion. We also worked with associations in Seattle. The Seattle Downtown Waterfront was very, very happy with this. This brought 15,000 people to the Seattle Downtown Waterfront that didn't have a burden on parking down there. They didn't have a burden on the infrastructure. They were just there to spend money. So they thank you all for doing that. And they were very instrumental in promoting the ferry service to Seattle downtown residents that then came and spent money in Des Moines. And there were several other partner organizations which I could give detail on in follow-up if you're interested. Next slide, please. This is the boat. I'm sure you all saw her this summer. Chilkat Express. She was built as a ferry for Alaska, so she's well suited to the calmer waters of Puget Sound. She's served most recently as a whale watching vessel. She's pretty fast. She does 40 knots, but we were operating her at 30 knots. She's an all-aluminum construction built locally here in Bellingham at All-American Marine, and carries 60 passengers. Next slide, please. We had two terminals. You're all familiar with the marina here in Des Moines and where the ferry was. If you didn't see her when she was operating, she was where the Ranger tugs are at the north end, just inside the riprap of the new marina. At Belle Harbor, I think it's pretty clear there. To the far right, there's a red stripe. That was where the Chilkat tied up in Belle Harbor. And Belle Harbor, if you aren't familiar with it, is just below Pike Place Market and to the north end. Port-owned property. Of note, we were able to use existing infrastructure. Both facilities were well suited and actually designed for this kind of work. So the next slide, please. As I mentioned, Maritime Consulting Partners was our lead operating consultant, and they developed the operations plan, oversaw the operations, and acted really as an owner's representative, make sure that everything was done compliant with Coast Guard regulations, in partnership and coordination with the tribes, and made sure that everything went very smoothly, which it did. I also want to recognize Scott Wilkins and Katie Bevigny at the marina. They were, I couldn't have imagined a better team to work with. Once it got started, frankly, I didn't hear very much because it went so smoothly. So I really want to recognize that. They did a great job. Next slide, please. So this is the fare structure. I referred earlier to fare box recovery. That's what those of us in the passenger vessel industry refer to as the money that's paid by passengers. It was outstanding for this operation. We had anticipated that we would get maybe 15 or 20% fare box recovery since it was a pilot and it was only running part of the summer and there were no commuters. We got 41%, which is a good 20% more than what is the industry standard for a good ferry service in the country. And it is more than twice what bus transit fare box recovery is. So that $90,000 goes against the $220,000 in operating expenses that we spend.
Peter, if I may add to that, so this was relatively modest fares. First week of ridership was free, then it was $10 each direction unless you're active military, and seniors were half price. Children under 13 were free. So we were really trying to emphasize utilization and not focus on the revenue recovery. But, you know, so as happens, I know a few people here have talked about being business people. If you do the right thing and you make things accessible, then you can be successful versus focusing on the money to start with. Focus on the quality of the service and the value of that. So we were exceedingly pleased with this outcome.
Okay, next slide, please. This is the schedule. We ran for 9 weeks. We ran Wednesday through Sunday with departures from Des Moines at 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m., and 4 p.m. Then we turn around and come back, departing Seattle at 11, 1, 3, and 5. The schedule was determined by we had, like everybody else, we had labor issues. We could get one crew for one 40-hour work week. And so we had to choose when we wanted to do that. And we chose Wednesday through Sunday so that we could kind of touch on the weekday, see what kind of traffic we got there. And then we chose the middle of the day because we thought that was the most responsible way to get the greatest number of people, again, touching with all the demographics we wanted to touch. Next slide. So ridership. I won't go through all of this. It's in the final report, which I understand will be posted tomorrow and accessible through Bonnie's system, which seems great to me. I'll check it out as well. Basically, we had 15,000 passengers. That was about 400 times what we thought, or yeah, 4 times what we thought we were gonna get based on industry averages for pilots like this. We had a load factor of 40%, which is also quite high, and a utilization of 70%. So it was a very successful pilot project in terms of ridership. So this is kind of a narrative of what is more easily shown on the next slide. So let's just go to that next slide then, because this is the graphic, which to me this is one of the most important things. So week 1 was free. That's Wednesday through Sunday. We had 1,900 passengers. But then you'll see that week 2, 3, and 4, we had a little bit of a decline through week 5. But then which really makes me optimistic about the future is that it looks like from week 6 through week 9, we had an increase. So what that tells me is that people tried the boat, they liked it, and they came back. And then they told their friends came, and they came back. So this is really something that none of us expected, is to see this kind of uptick in ridership later in the season, even after kids went back to school. So that was quite impressive, and we're very happy with that. Next slide, please. So these are the key findings that we kind of pulled out for year review. Most of the travel was leisure, people either coming to Des Moines or going to Seattle to visit and spend time and enjoy what Seattle and what Des Moines have to offer. That was expected given the schedule that we implemented. Most people came by by passenger vehicle. If we decide to move forward, we will concentrate on multimodal connections, and there's some recommendations at the end of the presentation. Age distribution was fairly evenly distributed among age groups, but we did see more users being 65 and older. That makes sense given the demographic of the target area and the fact that it was running in the middle of the day, Wednesday through Sunday. Most of the passengers came from around Des Moines, but we were very happy to see that we had about 30% of the passengers who looked to be coming from Seattle to Des Moines and going back. And that's something that we kind of hoped and figured we'd see, but 30% is quite substantial. And most ferry systems are predicated on people wanting to go from point A to point B and then coming back from point B to point A. And our proximity to the airport and what we have locally in Des Moines to engage people was the reason that we saw that. And that helps with the fare box recovery, and it helps local businesses as well. Next slide, please. As Michael said, the vast majority of passengers said that the one-way, so we did a survey of passengers. We did one halfway through the service and then one at the end, and this is the results of that survey. They said $10 was just about right. It should be one way, so $20 per person round trip. It should be noted that downtown Seattle, if you've parked there, it's about $20 an hour to park. So I think that's one of the reasons that we were so successful, is because it's a heck of a lot cheaper to bring a family of 4 up to Seattle and children riding free, 13 and under, and enjoy the ferry ride rather than have to fight with traffic and park somewhere in downtown. It's just a much pleasanter experience. And that was borne out by the vast majority of our riders being very happy with the experience. I spoke about fare box recovery earlier. There it is again, 41%, which is really, really good. Next slide, please. Local businesses were very happy. We expected that we would probably see a bump, but I didn't expect that we would see the enthusiastic response that we got from local businesses here in Des Moines who saw a bump in their business. Again, these are in the report. This is just a couple that we pulled out for you here. We've got, I think, dozens of businesses that have reported back to us. Next slide, please. Wesley Holmes, the CEO. Again, this is in your packet. I don't know if you've read it already, but the business district seems to be very, very happy with it. And then the next slide. So we were very happy with the project and the revenue generated from fare box recovery. It was very good. Places it at the upper end of ferry services around the country. And we recommend it based on the response that we got with ridership, fare box recovery, and just general anecdotal buzz around the city that we continue next year with the service. Next slide. We did learn some things, and we need to, if we do decide to move forward, we'll have to define the objectives for the next demonstration period. If we do decide to move forward, we have time now that we didn't have before the first one to expand labor, looking for more people to run the boats. We have began discussions this last time with Highline School District. Those who are in the Maritime High School now, when they are, the cohort this year was too young, but you only have to be 16 to work on a boat. So next year, those Maritime High School students will be able to work on a boat, and we think that we can work with them to get them on a boat, get them sea time, get them interested in a career at sea. They get to go home every night. They get sea time. They get paid. It's a pretty neat deal. So we'd want to look at that because we think it's important to expand the project period. We'd like to start earlier in the season, and we'd like to extend the service hours so that we can capture some of the commuters on either end. If we added one route in the morning and one route in the evening, that would give us 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., which would allow us to capture more commuters than we were able to this year. As I mentioned earlier, we think it's important too to to reinforce and expand our connections with other transportation modes and work with those intermodal connections. And we think it's important to develop partnerships to incentivize usage and also to help market the service and increase ridership. Want to incentivize retail businesses to work with us as well, so that we can really connect the businesses with the ferries and make sure that the ferry's doing what is best for those businesses. Next slide. So we think that given the high level of acceptance and the success of this year's project, that we could, for example, start around Mother's Day, which those of you who are locals here know that's really when we have good weather starting. Sometimes we get kind of rainy in June, but usually the month of May is when people start getting out, and we think they'll start to use it. And then extend through September. Basically, what we would be doing is marrying this to the farmers market schedule. This year we had a great October, and we had great ridership through October, but unfortunately, we thought we might get some weather in October, which is why we wanted to run it into October a little bit. We didn't get it this year, so we weren't able to test. In fact, the only day that we really had any rain was the very first day, very first trip, and it was packed. So there's what I've already told you about, that we thought if we started at 8, when we could get back, leaving Seattle at 7, that would get people back at 8. So we think we could capture some commuters there as well. Next slide, please. So if we decide to move forward, these are the things that we'll need to look at. Secure a vessel. The Chilkat Express was a vessel ideally suited for this route. We think we can secure her again. She's an older boat, and the operator now has a brand new boat that's bigger, so this boat should be available, although they'll start to lock it up for the next summer season very soon, so we will need to get on it if we decide to move forward. Bell Harbor and the Port of Seattle were really great to work with. They were a little bit further north than I think would be optimal. They certainly served the purpose, and they would be interested in working with us again, but because of the visibility that we got, there are a lot of other terminals in Seattle that would like to talk to us as well. So we'll want to explore other opportunities further down the central waterfront. Although we didn't really have any issues with ADA accommodation, we'll want to look at that. We were able to accommodate everybody that we needed to accommodate, but we can't accommodate currently the wheeled scooter or the motorized scooters. So we'll want to look at that and ensure that we adapt seating, which is possible with the operator to do that. Next slide. We also think it would be beneficial to have customer service representatives at either end. I'm going to call those ambassadors, because even though operationally we didn't have any problems at all with the crew, and in fact they knew what they were doing. They were in the hospitality business already, being specialists in whale watching. But we think that if we could get some local people here in Des Moines that could tell people where to go and help them answer questions and so on and so forth, that would just enhance the quality of the experience for the riders. Next slide, please. So these are the last slides I have for my presentation. It's just a snippet of things. We had, as Michael said, we had hundreds of positive comments. I'm sure there were comments on social media, other sites that we didn't capture, but the ones that we captured were all almost universally positive. And we got the message that it was not only a wonderful thing to have, but it improved the quality of life, and it really raised the visibility of Des Moines too in the region. We got a lot of what we call earned media, which is journalists and TV and radio people who said, "Hey, what's going on down there? Oh, I'm going to go check it out." You probably saw it in the Seattle Times and on the radio and such. And that all came in large part because it was a successful operation. Again, it was unique that a city could do it, and would love to do it again. So I think that concludes my remarks. Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to call everyone's attention to the last comment. It was a very touching comment.
I'll read it out loud. Go ahead and put it there.
No, it's toward the end.
Yeah, it's toward the end. It's the second to last.
No, down to.
Yeah, 22, yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Just up one.
There we go.
Yeah, all right. We rode the Des Moines Ferry during Pilot Project 2022. We purchased our tickets online, which went great. We drove to Seattle with our family members who live in the area. The crew and the boat were great. We loved our experience of riding back and forth. We had this experience simply for the pleasure and eating at Anthony's restaurant. Our niece had never been on a ferry. It was her last trip before passing away a week and a half ago. So thank you for fulfilling a last wish, LR.
Council, then if we could go to the next slide. The final report will be posted tomorrow on the website, and without a commitment to any resources, but just generally, we'd like to ask council for a motion to move forward, to bring back to you options to implement a phase 2 second season. This would, as I said, this will not involve the commitment of any funds at this point, but just allows us to pursue this with some knowledge that, or with knowledge that council is supportive of it with what we bring back. So we don't want to waste your time or our time, but we think this is a great move, and we certainly, as a city and as staff and everyone, are grateful to incredible support system we had between Scott and Katie and Peter. And others. Anthony Hempstead was involved, a number of people in ferry operations generally, the Port of Seattle, but also the support of the council to move forward with something very unique and something I think, and as the mayor has said, and I'll let him speak for himself, but generally it put us on the map and as a capable city able to act independently, which was really positive. So with that, that concludes our portion.
All right, I think we're going to do some comments and questions and so forth. Peter, you probably want to get up to the podium, I suspect, but I'm going to turn it over first to Deputy Mayor Buxton. And I recognize you, Councilmember Oxiger, next. So, and Councilmember Steinmetz.
So I move to direct staff to move forward to establish potential terms to continue the passenger ferry service pilot phase 2 into a second season.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have Councilmember Nutting, but I also acknowledge you. All right, well, let's go with some questions and comments before we take a vote on the motion. So you were next, Councilmember Oxiger.
Well, point of order, Mayor, are we, is this discussion to the motion?
The discussion is to the motion, so we can belay that and have questions.
It seems to me it would be more appropriate.
Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll hold the motion, and we'll have questions and so forth. So with that, who would like to go first? You have the floor, Councilmember, or Deputy Mayor Buxton. Would you like to go first? Sure. Okay, then Councilmember Oxiger, I'll have you.
So thank you, Peter. Great work and great presentation. So a couple questions. Would we be able to, if we did move forward toward a pilot next year, would we be able to add special runs for events such as music in the park or Blues and Brews? Would that be a possibility?
Well, it's more of a possibility next year than it was this year. We didn't really have the time to explore those partnerships, and the potential partners hadn't seen what we did. So, short answer is yes.
Okay, and then one more question. In regard to the weather, you did mention it, the capability of the boat, you know, that it was built for Alaska. Could you just add another little comment or a surety? I know there's a couple of similar boats that run year-round out of Port Orchard that are the same kind of style of boat, a little bit bigger, and they run year-round. Do you think this boat a boat this size could potentially handle?
Yeah, this boat, as I said, was built as a ferry in Alaska. And it's the model on which all of those, all-American, most of the boats that you see in Kitsap Transit, King County Marine Division, Kitsap Transit's the one that you're referring to, are modeled on this boat. They're built by the same operator. They're aluminum catamarans with a little foil, and they have what are called ride stabilizers to smooth them. And they're all, this boat is definitely able to handle any sea state in Puget Sound.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you. Well, I note on the chart here that the final report will be posted on the city website tomorrow. So we haven't seen the final report, and we have a motion now on the floor to proceed without having seen the data. I would propose that we remand this to the Transportation Committee because I know Councilmember Pennington, you're interested in intermodal issues, and this is transportation, so I think it's highly appropriate that, before we proceed with any further, that we have a chance to, really take a look at the final report. And as far as
Councilmember Oxiger, just to reiterate, this motion is solely for them to pursue with the ability to do so. If it gets remanded to a committee at a later time, it does, per council decision. So not necessarily is it locked in stone, but it's to move forward, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And the other thing, council member, is that everything you've seen in this PowerPoint is redundant to what's in the final report. There's nothing in the final report that is not part of this PowerPoint.
Well, then,
I thought we delayed the motion until we have the discussion on the report.
Exactly. We have delayed, we have delayed the motion. He's basically, if I understand it, are you trying to make another motion to reprimand this to the Transportation Committee, or? And I just was correcting him on the fact that this was just to pursue forward, preparing something that we would approve, I suspect, in the spring, or not approve.
My understanding was you're going to deal with the immediate reaction to the presentation that we just had. Then we're going to discuss whether to go forward and how to go about that, rather than trying to get that mixed up now. I understand his point. I just think it's a little premature, as I understood where we were at.
I would agree. Let's ask questions and so forth, and then we'll get into the motion. So, okay, well, I already had Councilmember Steinmetz, and I've recognized you, Councilmember Harris, is next.
Mr. Phillips, you indicated that we made a 41% cost recovery, essentially. Is that correct? And that was primarily from the fare box?
Correct.
Or only from the fare box, I think.
Yeah, that's on the operations.
Yeah, and then the national average is about 30%?
Yep.
So do you ever foresee this being a self-sustaining kind of operation, or will it always need to be subsidized?
Transit is, the reason, no, short answer is no. And the reason that, public agencies, cities, and others get involved in transit is because they aren't self-sustaining. They need the support of the public agency for the public good. Mm-hmm. There are no public ferry systems or transit systems of any kind that I know of in the country that are self-sustaining.
Yeah, when I was in college, I worked for the San Diego Trolley, which was a big electric trolley, and they were always trying to get to at least covering operating costs, and could never cover their capital costs at all. But that was always sort of the goal that never quite could be met.
Now, capital costs are different. In the ferry world, and specifically now, there are grants that are available, and they would have to come through a public agency like a city or transportation district that could allow us to get capital costs completely funded in the future. If this proves to work, then we have the ability to get grant-funded purchase of a boat, if that's what the city wanted to do. That may not be what the city wants to do, but in the passenger ferry-only market, it's the operating costs that require the subsidy. It's a lot easier, believe it or not, to get the capital costs covered.
You say, if this proves to work, what's the definition of proving to work?
Well, I guess you guys have to decide whether or not it's worthy of the investment. If we are allowed to move forward and to begin the planning for next year, then next year we'll be able to really say, okay, because I think one of one of the considerations that we were asked to look at in the past that we couldn't, Councilmember Oshinger, was what about commuters? Well, you know, we were prescribed with what, you know, we could only work with what we had in terms of labor this time, but we've taken into account that we want to see what commuters how they might use it. And that would help you determine whether or not you felt it was something that could move forward.
Okay, there's some real smart guys that can take the numbers and sort of project them out. Has any of that work been done yet on this ferry, and if we include an expanded schedule and what the expectations might be?
Well, when we did the demand study, that's kind of what that was. It was modeling. But unfortunately, when you model something, you know, you rely on people's responses without actually asking them to get on the boat. And the only way to really test is by putting the vessel or vessels in service and seeing how people use them. And if they use them the way you expect them to use them. We did not expect the usage the way we got here. So I would consider this a great success.
You say this usage is higher than what would have been projected from the demand study? Is that
correct? Yep.
Okay.
Councilmember, if I may, yeah, to your point, so I think where this all would lead, let's say everything went well, I think where it leads to is the concept of potentially using electrification for ferries and helping safeguard our orca populations and other things like that. So there's an environmental piece. Those are popular with the federal government right now. So it may be that there is some significant amount of resources that we could acquire over time to make this an ongoing business and not for the city to be responsible for all of it. That's what our hope is.
Okay.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have three questions, I guess. So since this thing will not pay for itself, you know, it's like a front-end shelf, in my world, retail, like it's a loss leader, and that it will somehow drive either a income benefit or an ineffable public benefit that is sustainable. Either you'll be able to say it brings in X amount of dollars in retail, or it brings joy and happiness, but something that you can quantify in some way. Is there a way to do that, where you can say 5 years, 10 years out, this is going to generate X amount of sales, it's going to cure this many people of disease, it's going to, and I'm sorry to sound flip, but I think you understand what I'm saying, because it either has a dollar benefit or it has an ineffable benefit in the way that a public park does, right? I mean, you know, you build playground equipment, it's a cost, but it brings enough joy and happiness to people that we decide it's worth it. But you can quantify that.
Councilmember,
so how do you do that?
I'm going to defer to city manager for the.
I would really refrain at this point. We've done this once. We didn't know. We're extremely pleased with the results. I would hesitate, not to call it a floating Walmart, but I would hesitate to emphasize speculation at the level that you're recommending.
I'm not. When you put in a Starbucks, a guy will give you a spreadsheet that says this is what it's going to do to the area, and they're good at predicting that 5, 10 years out. Anyway, okay, fine. So page 43 of our July meeting, the cost estimate was $470K, and somewhere back there, I can't read it, it says that you came in at $220. That's deep. You know, normally our engineers, we come in at, 10, 15, and so on. So how is it that we came in, I mean, it's wonderful news, but how is it that it came in at like less than half the expected price?
Well, I can't comment on the 475. We did expect it to be substantially more expensive than it was. We worked.
Well, I'm just looking at the fuel cost that was, and I'm like, wow, that's really, but so you're not, I mean, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, I'm just like, it's really.
Well, the short answer is we worked really hard to keep the costs down.
Okay.
You know, everybody in the team.
Okay, then, so how come you didn't show up with the final report today? Because I can't see very well, and it would have helped me to be able to read it, and I would have asked smarter questions than I obviously am. I mean, would it have been possible to, I'm not trying to beat you up, but I just,
That's not Peter's call.
I see. Thank you for that clarification. That's it.
Right, I have a couple questions. Did you have some? I'll go with you, Councilmember Pennington.
Yeah, I like the return on the fare box and the 41%. You answered my questions in terms of the commuter traffic. Is 8 o'clock, is that window too late, or is it, I mean, some folks go earlier, what is that, was the optimum window, or?
Well, that was just a proposal that we put together for this presentation to demonstrate that if we added only one round trip in the morning and only one round trip in the afternoon, we could get to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We could certainly add more. It's, you know, it's cost-benefit analysis that we'll have to do.
Right, yeah. So anyway, I was just curious about that. And in terms of the grants, and I guess part of what we're discussing and whether it, you know, we want to have staff take a look at this, and a part of what we'll find out, I'm thinking is you know, we're talking about grants and electric ferries and whether the city wants to get into the ferry business or whether we want to have a public-private partnership where they have all the hard, you know, capital hardware and we provide a customer base. So I think that's part of, as this goes, you know, and you guys do take a look and over the next year and then it can, you know, go back into some other committees and understand what those are. And we'll be able to answer those questions down the road in terms of what we want to do as a city and type of partnership or type of business we want to get into. So thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember, if I may, that's really interesting because the point originally was to find out would it work. Would anybody ride it? Would anyone pay to ride it, you know? And that's what Peter's been sharing is what the outcomes are, and those are great. So the level of questions now you're embarking on are the result of this being functional and successful, and can we find partners? And we will look, absolutely. That's definitely a strategy.
I will offer, if I may, that that because of the visibility and the success of this operation, I have gotten calls from electric ferry builders who say, hey, we've got an idea, we've got this, and we're looking for a test bed. And Des Moines to Seattle, Des Moines to Tacoma is 17 nautical miles. And that's almost exactly what existing all electric ferry operators can do. So we are very attractive to the worldwide ferry market. They have to be built here, which is good, but we're getting calls already.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, going out on a limb and doing this has opened up a lot of, or will potentially open up a lot of opportunities for the city, for businesses that are here, because, you know, with folks that want to come down and things that are going on Marine View Drive. And so there's still some unknowns, but sometimes we need to take a risk to understand what we can and can't do and what our potentials are. Thanks.
Councilmember Nutting.
Yeah, I guess with this motion in front of us, what we'd be looking at, and it kind of dovetails with Councilmember Pennington's question, is there a possibility of partnering with, say, Point Ruston and getting them involved with this somehow?
There are possibilities for what this will allow me to do is go out and start talking to people, and that's what I need to be able to do to lock up the boats, to lock up the terminals, because boats are limited, terminals are limited.
Councilmember Nutting, though, that you raise a really important point and a good point, which is that ferry service, although initiated by the city of Des Moines, and you know we had the run to Seattle back, it's absolutely a regional dynamic. And so engaging Point Ruston, engaging Pierce County, other services that exist, ways to kind of connect those, absolutely. So we've done that. We've had conversations. One of the Pierce County commissioners Ryan Mello is a very strong fan of ferry service. He was up here way before we ever started, and we kept him in the loop as how it was proceeding. He was instrumental in PSRC, so there's a lot of kind of connections that occur in this that are important.
Yeah, it'd just be great if we can move forward with it and have other entities bear the burden of the financial aspect of this and move us forward, so.
And if I may, my last comment, and I apologize, it's never been our intention that the city would shoulder this on the long term by itself. It was just a demonstration, and it turned out great, and Peter gets calls and I get calls, and we're trying to build on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get you in a second, Deputy Mayor Buxton and Councilmember Harris. I got a few questions myself. So 14,858 riders, that's half our population. That's pretty good considering so forth. Would we consider, one of the things is they were buying a ticket there and a ticket back, and I know that it gave them the ability to be flexible. Would we be able to find ways maybe to consider round-trip tickets, family tickets? Maybe we could bring in a little additional revenue that way. And is the senior military price the right price? I mean, it was a great value. Should we consider a little more? Is it right, or so forth?
Well, again, we'd have to look at that more completely, but I would say that the fact that we had a load factor of 70% tells me that yes, that we have the ability to generate more revenue from the fare box than we have. That's off the cuff with what we've seen here.
Yeah, that's the same thing I see. I think that your capture of feedback, you guys did an excellent job to answer, are people satisfied? I think we got the answer to that, and that was, I think, something that we can continue to solicit feedback. I saw not only would they enjoyed the ferry, but they gave good constructive feedback of how the experience could even be better, and I think that can be applied. I'd love to see in the motion that gets included a way to, and you kind of mentioned it here, but connecting with some of the restaurants and shops. I dine out quite frequently and talk to many of the owners, and they were all positive and seemed eager. I think if there was a way for them to give some kind of a report or some feedback to the economic benefit it brought to the community, that would be great. If you include that. One of the things that I look at this like, as the city manager said, eventually, we want to find a way that we're not the only player in the game. But I kind of look at this like a park. A lot of our parks will take the field house park, or you take the beach park. The truth is they bring revenue in, but they probably don't pay for themselves. According to the last budget, that's definitely the case. But what they do is provide an experience for our residents and the surrounding community, I think is of a great value. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with it, and I think that, partnerships with financial partners would be something to explore. It's not uncommon, and in fact, I have experience with sponsorship sales where you conceivably wrap the boat, or you offer what we call non-fare box revenue. Employers can buy tickets for their employees, that kind of thing. But it is an amenity. It's a quality of life asset that very few cities can offer, because very few cities have a marina that's halfway between downtown Seattle and downtown Tacoma and adjacent to the airport.
Okay, and then another question. So I gave a presentation of the South End mayors to a group of business owners and so forth, and I went up there asking if everybody had heard about the ferry service. Well, not only did every public official and business owner know about it, but so did the wait staff. The PR value, public relations, or advertising for the city, is there a way to even estimate what that value would have been?
Well, we spent $25,000 in advertising and paid advertising, but we got a substantial amount of what we called earned media, at least 4 times. I could certainly attempt to make some kind of accounting of that, but there are social media, it's so hard. What I noticed is that we pitched the story to the Seattle Times, and you all saw the 3-page spread we got in the Seattle Times about Des Moines. It wasn't really about the ferry service, but it was because of the ferry service that story appeared. So that 3-page spread would have cost us, just that spread that one day, $35,000. And when that spread ran, then we got something in Crosscut, then we got something on Cairo Radio, then we got something on, because they all, you know, it literally went viral. So, you know, I could estimate, but I would be underestimating.
Thank you. I'm going to move over to Deputy Mayor Buxton, and then Councilmember Harris, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to kind of make a summary statement and see if you agree with this, but if you, let's say any city in the country that had the capability of having a ferry service and wanted it and tried it, it's not going to, the fare box receipts are not going to pay for it anywhere.
Correct.
And so if anybody wants it, they're gonna have to work with an equation like this, but we shown what, almost twice, this pilot did almost twice what the expectation for any city in the country anywhere would have done, is what you're saying.
No.
41% is twice, no, 20% above what, so when you think of any city in the country trying to do something like this, we did better than almost anybody could have hoped anywhere.
We did a very good job.
Yes.
We did, yeah.
So I think that that's what I'm trying to wrap my mind about. Instead of thinking, is this going to pay for itself? Well, you have to say, well, first, do you even want something like this? And we tried it and we did fantastic. Okay.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. And again, I want to treat you with the greatest degree of courtesy. It's just, I've, you know, done some research with King County Water Taxi and PSRC and Kitsap Transit, and it costs about $1.5 million a year to run a 2-point ferry. That's just what it's going to end up being. And that's $1.5 million a year in structural revenue. And if you want to think of it as a park, then I have to think about a park in terms of the highest use. We have no parks in the south end, and for me, this is a question of justice. This is a question of providing an amenity using the money until we become a reserve currency. This is money that will not go to other things that are desperately needed and are more in the core functionality of the city, including parks, including public safety. And that's where my mind is on this. And as to the popularity amongst boat builders, of course boat builders are all in favor of building boats. Thank you.
Councilmember, I'm as you make your points, I'm struck by your comment when we wanted to initiate this, that it was complete insanity. So hopefully that some of that's been redirected based on performance.
I would also question, we do have parks in the south end, you know, down in Redondo and so forth. But second of all, it was a reference as a park, but what you're missing is the economic generator it is, the advertising to the community, the word gets out, the service and experience we gave people, it's in like a park. So I found it odd. Your comments seem to be misplaced, in my opinion, and didn't relate to what this is really about. Anyway, go ahead, Councilman.
Okay, what we're missing is the final report. And I'm sorry, I have problems doing math, sitting here, trying to do math, looking up at the screen and all of that. We're talking about spending the public's money without having the final report in front of us. So I think it's highly appropriate that let's remand this to the Transportation Committee so that they can take a look at it and check the data against the presentation and see if it holds up. And, you know, I don't know when it's appropriate to do it, but that's what I would like to do, is remand this to the Transportation Committee.
Councilmember Oxiger, first of all, it would probably go to the economic development or municipal facilities before it'd go to transportation, as I see it fit. But that being aside, The motion here that we're discussing, or we'll plan on voting on, is for them to pursue it further for further information that we'd sometimes see in the spring for a second season. That's solely what we're doing here. As far as being remanded to committee, usually typically these types of things would come before certain committees. Certainly the Transportation Committee could be involved in an update on it, just like Economic Development or Municipal Facilities might. But at this juncture, that's what we're solely doing here. And as City Manager mentioned, this is the report. Councilmember Pennington.
So as I understand it, the motion is to give staff the ability to put together the rest of the data so it can be presented to either a committee or council for financial encumbrance for 2023.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the motion. Thank you for your clarification, Councilmember Pennington. Is there any further discussion before we take the vote? Councilmember Oxiger.
So you're telling me that this is the report? There's what's going to be posted tomorrow is going to have no additional information?
Well, it'll be fleshed out, but everything that I presented here comes directly from the report that you'll see tomorrow.
It'll be fleshed out, but, you know, the devil is in the details.
I prepared the report, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, the problem is that the way this has been presented, it's like, you know, I'm sorry, I need to sit down and look at something and not have it sprung on us with, okay, this is it, vote on it, you know? And, you know, I think in particular, the fact that there is not a final report, you know, in front of us is problematic, to say the least.
Okay, well, Councilmember Oxiger, obviously in the vote, if you'll be able to decide how you want to go or what you want to pursue, just like every other council member. So with that, is there any further discussion before I take a vote on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of pursuing this and going forward with the information for a plan to bring it back sometime in the spring to us, as it was put, all those in favor, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. All those opposed? I see Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Oxiger. The motion passes 5-2. Michael, the floor is back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I want to once again thank Peter Phillips for just his outstanding contribution to making this happen. My last item, which probably everyone will be happy to hear, is good news, and I'm going to ask Beth Ann Rowe to present an item that hopefully will be well received.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, council and staff. Beth Ann Rowe, Finance Director. I am super, super happy to let you know and to share with you the Marina Fund had 2 issues of debt outstanding, and today we paid off the 2012 revenue bonds. So we're super excited. I mean, this is what we love, is getting debt paid off. And in doing so, we had, with the 2 outstanding debt issues, we were under 2 ratings, one with Moody's, which was a AA2, and then we had, or no, make sure I get this right. Moody's was an A2, and then our Standard & Poor's was a AA+. Because we've paid off this revenue bond, that the Moody's rating falls off, so we don't have a split rating anymore. We actually are under the Standard & Poor's AA+, which is just one step down from a AAA. So the good news is that under the Marina Fund, there's about $300,000 in debt service capacity that we don't have to pay. So that's improved cash flow for the Marina Fund. And then we also had to hold a reserve for the bond of $281,000. So that money can be held when we go out for bonding to be used towards the bond issue, or it can go towards the capital improvements. So the good news is that the Marina Fund is in a more positive financial position. And as we start to do improvements down there on the docks, it just helps that. And I'm just really happy to share the news.
What was the debt, the bond?
The bond,
Yeah, what was the amount paid off?
the amount that was,
Total.
the total 2012 LTGO refunding bonds, which are limited term general obligation bonds, 2.8 million.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thanks, Beth Ann. That's a nice way to end this report, especially tonight. So with that, Mayor, thank you.
City Manager Mathias, you forgot one thing. I gotta just say that the positive feedback from our Public Works Department on keeping our roads safe over the last few snow days has been superior. And I'll give them a total appreciation for that. You had a lot on your list, so we'll let you go. All right, with that, will the city clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, consultant contract amendment number 12, Grant Fredericks. Item 3, Peter Phillips consulting contract amendment number 3. Item 4, Marina redevelopment consulting contract amendment. Item 5, 2022 sidewalk replacement project Public Works construction contract award. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Councilmember Pennington is seconded. Is there any council member that wishes to pull an item? Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull items 2, 3, and 4.
All right, consent agenda will be items 1 and 5. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0 for those two items, and we will move on to item 2, which is a consultant contract for Grant Fredericks. With that, I turn the floor over to you, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more of a vanity item for me. I am just basically, we have long-term consultants that move, from one project to another, and I was a consultant, and that always is a little concerning to me. The firms like Parametrics we hire, that's great because we get to hear from them routinely in environment and so forth. But it does not kill me, this kind of ongoing type of a thing, and I sure hope we can bring some of that work in-house at some point. And that's it, so let's vote.
Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve amendment number 12 to grant, to the contract with Grant Frederickson Continuing Professional Consultant Services through December 31st, 2023, with the increase of $5,000 for 2022 and up to $50,000 in, I don't know whether there's an M there, 2023, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract amended substantially in the form as submitted.
Second.
Councilmember Pennington seconding that. I would just add that I think using consultants is a very wise and smart way to do business. First of all, the level of quality and experience you're going to get in somebody like Mr. Grant Fredericks does not come cheap. The fact that you have to pay benefits and other things as well. This is a way to keep quality level people that are fully engaged with our city, helping us guide the ship correctly, accurately, and efficiently with no missteps or very little. Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Isn't this contract also fully reimbursed by ST3?
Yes, the amount, the financial relationship with Sound Transit relative to the city, supporting contracts like this, supporting Dan Brewer's efforts and so forth, has been, I would say, extremely fair.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? I see Councilmember Pennington. I see Councilmember Steinmetz. I see Deputy Mayor Buxton. I see Councilmember Nutting and myself. All those opposed? I see Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Oxiger. Motion passes 5-2. All right. Moving on to the Peter Phillips consulting contract. Councilmember Harris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Without beating a dead horse, I am irrevocably opposed to every aspect of this ferry project, and I must vote against the idea of increasing the payment based on what I heard just tonight is like, holy mackerel. And yes, this is insane. Let's vote.
Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve Amendment 3 to the contract between the city and Peter Phillips, extending the consulting services contract through December 31st, 2023.
Second.
Councilmember Pennington is seconded. Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, again, this is a case of, we haven't seen the final report. There was an increase that was passed, an agreement on the 26th day of August that increased the compensation $1,100. And now we're doing another increase and haven't seen a report. I don't think this is appropriate until we can actually see what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxiger. Deputy Mayor Buxton.
I understand that there's an incredible amount of administrative work that goes into working all of the arms of making this ferry service work. And he talked about some of the things that need to be worked ahead of time in order to even secure the data and the information that we'll need in order to make a good decision this spring. He's going to have to double his efforts, triple his efforts. He's got connections to make, people to talk to. And if we are to move forward successfully this summer, if we do decide to do that, there are a lot of ducks that need to be lined up in a row way ahead of time when you're talking about securing spots in downtown Seattle on the waterfront and the connections that need to be made and the advertising that needs to be prepared for. There's no way to wait and still be successful if you decide to move forward without him beginning now. And I personally have great hopes of moving forward on this. It's going to be hard to quash my excitement. So I'm in favor of encouraging Peter with the work that he's doing. It's incredibly valuable to our economy and our place on the map. Thank you.
City Manager Mathias, then I'll get to you, Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, those are really well-chosen comments in my view. And some of the things beneath the scenery, and I know I'll distract Scott out there, but may need to corroboration. We had to go through a process with the tribes, with the port, with the city of Seattle, with the ferry operators, with the Coast Guard, with emergency management, with every possible entity that would have an interest. And we met for 2 hours weekly, putting this in place. And so the dynamic of what you saw on the screen from Peter, the PowerPoint, did not speak to all of the effort and time that went into getting to that point. So your comments are well chosen, and I certainly would never recommend to council any payments to consultants that were not, in my view, fair. And I know how much work Peter put into this. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
I think it's always a really good idea to have somebody who knows what they're doing when you try to start something like this. And, you know, by every indication, Mr. Phillips certainly has all those qualifications. But if for some reason we don't go forward with next year, is there a clause in the contract that would allow us to get out of this consulting contract?
Yes, there is. Section 8 of the contract, there's a 30-day termination clause.
Okay.
By either party, with or without cause.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the Peter Phillips Consulting Contract, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. All those opposed, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Oxiger. Motion passes 5-2. All right. Councilmember Harris, Marina Development Consulting Contract, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I cannot see renewing or let alone increasing the contract fees for Mr. Holmes. This whole marina redevelopment deal, which started out innocuously enough as we need to replace the docks, has turned into a monster. And it's just, we need to stop and regroup. And I'm sorry that the public left, but this whole thing with the 27th, if you show up on the, I hope people watch, you show up on the 27th and you've got the same 7 posters and laser pointer and no more information than we had on September the 27th, and so what? Let's vote.
First of all, it's January 26th, just to correct the information. The second one is what started out as replace docks, and turned into marina development. I think that's insane, because we've been talking about it long as I've been on council and before that, and it was even in 2010 and 2012, there was a Wagoneer push to get development. There's been talk about it all the time. So it was odd to hear you say that. I got the floor, sir. Anyway, it just seemed that's kind of a random statement, unfactual and untrue when it's been in the minds. I know some of the council members have been here for a while. Councilmember Pennington's been here his life, and I'm sure what to do with the marina has always been a discussion, and not just dock replacement. Councilmember Pennington.
Yeah, with the marina redevelopment, there, gosh, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many times that's been before the council and what they should do and shouldn't do and want to do, and this person's, gonna do this, and every one of them have fallen through. And so if you don't have somebody that can guide you through this, that actually knows what they're doing, a lot of well-intended folks, and I would venture to say that nobody on this dais, in terms of elected officials, have the experience nor the expertise in this level of development. So you can throw good money after bad, or you can hire someone that actually has a visible things. You can go into downtown Seattle and Edmonds and other places of work that they've done that is successful and is contributing to the communities that work was done in. So I'll be supporting this item.
Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve the draft consultant agreement amendment 1 with the Holmes Group LLC in an amount not to exceed $80,000 for the purpose of providing consulting services for the marina redevelopment, and authorize the city manager to sign agreement substantially in the form as attached.
Second.
Councilmember Pennington has seconded the motion. All right.
I'd like to say one thing.
Councilmember Nutting, you have the floor.
I haven't always approved the agreements between the Holmes Group and his consulting. And I was a part of the council when we did sign an agreement for redevelopment on the marina, and they ended up wanting us to foot the bill of the development, and then ultimately walked away from everything. And at that time, we had no consultant, and we just picked the best RFQ in committee and come back to council and voted on it. So with this, I am happy to approve this, and look forward to the coming year and what it is to bring, and the study session and what we will be looking at. So that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Any further discussion? Seeing none?
Just one point
Councilmember
of
Pennington.
clarification on Councilmember Nutting's comments. It wasn't the Holmes Group that wanted us to foot the bill. It was
No. I'm sorry. It was not the Holmes Group. It was a different developer that came in and was approved. I think it was Good Fit or something like that.
And it turned out because they didn't have any resources or any financial depth to them, and they wanted the city to absorb all of that. So again, it was a lesson learned.
Thank you, Councilmember Pennington, for the correction and clarification.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion of Marina Development Consulting Contract with Robert Holmes, our Holmes Group LLC. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting and myself. All those opposed, I see Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Oxiger. Motion passes 5-2. All right. All right, we're gonna, this is the time for new business. It's the sole for proposing new business that has not previously been discussed before council. This is not a time for questions of old business. Council members can submit questions or seek updates on previously discussed business on this, to the city manager anytime. Do any council members have new business they would like to propose? Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the email that I sent earlier in the week, we should reinstate the public comment form, and I ask your support on that and create a formal system. I like using the public comment form because it's a process that the public can go to the website and they can see, oh, this is how you do it, and this has the same force and effect as showing up in person. And we should make that a basic system that everybody understands. I appreciate what the clerk, Bonnie said about the process and all, but it's confusing to people, and we should just make it simple. And we had something that more or less worked and could be tweaked a bit, and flip a switch and bring it back. Yeah.
Do I have two other council members that support this? I see one.
I can perhaps propose an alternative. Why don't we just make a link on the website to email the council?
And we have a link.
Okay, that would take the place of a public comment.
But people don't know that it's a public comment. They don't know the rules. This is like part your hair on the right, and people, a good model is the Port of Seattle, where they have a simple thing. Notice we're having an actual discussion, which is nice. Thank you. They have a thing on their website where they say you can provide public comment either in person or electronically, this, and they have a form, or they have a procedure where you send them a properly formatted email, and it becomes part of the packet. And that gives the public confidence that whether you're there or whether you're not, that, it all has the equivalent force. And I think that.
Councilmember Harris, it just appears to me that it's redundant. We're already doing that through the email system. And I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's just additional stuff. Moving on to Deputy Mayor Buxton.
If you could clarify, I don't know if Bonnie could, but I think there's also a response. When somebody emails the council, they will get a response that tells them that thank you for something like, thank you for this comment, your comment will be attached, it become public record and be attached to the packet, something like that. So then all you do is click, it's the same thing, you click and you get that information. The public gets that information, correct?
Right.
But the rest of the public doesn't know. See, what the public wants is when they send in 62 emails about the hotel or 110 about hazard pay, they want to see that their neighbors all feel the way that they do or don't feel the way that they do. It's part of the public square. It has value. And it's not hard to do. And so I don't understand why something that requires about an hour of web time would be in any way controversial. But,
all right.
Okay.
Do we just need to see if we have a third to support it moving forward on a future agenda? I've got two. Do I have a third? We do not. It dies. All right. Moving on to board and committee reports. Councilmember Steinmetz, you have the floor first.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah. You went first on the Pledge of Allegiance, and with the deputy mayor going this time, you still, you don't get to rotate.
Okay. Actually, I don't have a lot to report at this point, so that's about all.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, just the tree lighting is tomorrow night starts at 5. The tree lighting will actually be at 6 down at Big Catch Plaza. This is one of the events that brings out a lot of kids and families in the city, so I understand that most of us will be there. And one other thing I'd like to point out is I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I had the flu. I would caution people that I did have a flu shot 2 weeks before I came down with the flu, and I've been told that, yeah, it takes 30 days for it to actually take effect, the immunization. So I would encourage anybody that has not had a flu shot so far to definitely get one, because that stuff is nasty. Took 12 days to get rid of it, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxiger, and glad you're well. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have to say is that I want to thank all city staff, but Public Works in particular, making our roads safe, as you brought up earlier, in the last few days that we've had some events, and that's about it.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Port of Seattle's budget meeting on Tuesday, and I just wanted to point out that the port commissioners are able to obtain briefings on any agenda item ahead of any meeting, under certain ground rules. They understand that that's the way that they get educated. The council was offered a 15-minute meeting with directors once a year, and I just want to point out, those who watched tonight's meeting, we have a system here, and other cities, other jurisdictions work very differently. If you like the way things are going with the marina development, you also like the transparency or lack thereof. You like the process because it's moving things in a direction that you agree with. I would just tell people that this is, if you're not thrilled about a hotel or about anything, it's not the hotel that's the problem. It's the mechanism that has allowed the hotel to go forward. And that's the thing you should focus on. I understand that people are busy and all you think about is the issue right in front of you, but it's really the process that is the problem. And I want to thank everybody who showed up again tonight. You knocked it out of the park. You gave me things that I had not thought of, and it was just like, wow, this is really great. And I encourage the public to show up more for these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Moving on to Councilmember Pennington.
All right, thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd like to thank everyone that showed up this evening. They're gone, but thank you, and thank you for those that tuned in. When you show up here and you get to stand up there and your voice is heard, that's the best way to have influence on what goes on in your city. And there's still somebody here in the audience that understands that well, and or a couple of folks. So thank you, and thank you all for coming and showing up. Thanks to the road crew. And as we go into the holidays, be careful, as you start having your Christmas tree, and if you have a live tree, be sure and keep it watered, and be careful with your candles, and just be safe. This is a tough time of year in terms of fires and things that go on in that respect. In terms of my fellow council members' comment about briefings, I will either send an email or ask a question, and I seem to get an answer about anything when I have a question about what goes on or what needs to go on during the council. They've made it pretty clear, at least staff has, that if you get a hold of them ahead of time, not the day of, that they can take time with you. So anyway, I haven't had the same experience as you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I echo my colleague. I haven't had any trouble at all. So I get my questions answered. Since our last meeting, I've participated in about 15 engagements with colleagues, staff, citizens, boards, and committees, and discussed and advocated with regard to budget issues, communication and community engagement, economic development, affordable housing and homelessness, regional issues and representation, and public safety, and I've thoroughly enjoyed our community. I just have one notable item tonight. Sound Cities Association is an association that helps represent 38 cities in King County to give them an equal voice and hearing as compared to the city of Seattle and King County in our county in regard to policy and issues. And last night they had their annual meeting, and Hillary Franz was our keynote speaker, and I just want she's our Commissioner of Public Lands and is responsible for governing about 6 million acres in the state of Washington. Just an interesting note, we are the largest geoduck producer globally, and most of that goes to Japan because I guess you could say Washington now has a hashtag aphrodisiacs are us. You could say state of Washington produces that. Hashtag goals, right? But she is sharp. Oh, I want to say too, all that, the resource that comes from that goes to salmon habitat, restoring salmon habitat and coastal restoration. So that's a really great trade-off. She was transparent, sharp, real, and she'll go to the very edge to advocate and support the citizens in this state. And she was amazing. It was amazing to hear from her. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I would add on to Councilmember Pennington and Deputy Mayor Buxton's comments. All the current majority leadership has done throughout the last 8-10 years has get us out of near bankruptcy, established a great credit rating, built a reserve, and this is in partnership with a quality staff and a city manager. I have found that if I'm civil, respectful, and I ask relevant questions, then I get answers. With that being said, on November 18th, Deputy Mayor Buxton and I went to Maritime High School, and we got to meet with the principal, Tremaine Holloway, who runs that organization. It's fabulous. We got a tour. We were impressed with some of the experiments the students were doing. We talked about the love that we have for them, mutual respect, Michael, which I know you've talked to Dr. Durand about, is so forth, and finding ways to keeping engaged in the community. It was an awesome experience, and I invite my other colleagues to do the same. The tree lighting, one of the things that I wanted to add was I know that several of the city staff bent over backwards to get a snowmaking machine for this event. Scott, you and your staff, I want to say wholeheartedly thank you. I know it was a last minute request, but you were able to do it for the good of the community. And on behalf of the community, I wholeheartedly say thank you. There's a couple of other things. In addition to the tree lighting at Big Catch Plaza, we have one at Wesley. And then on December 3rd, there's a boat parade. I believe it's 6 p.m. And December 6th, there's going to be Shop with a Cop, which is a great program for a lot of our officers and those children in need. The next meeting will be December 8th. It'll be a regular city council meeting at 6 p.m. And with that, we will be moving into an executive session. At this time, we will be doing this to discuss performance of public employee under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G. The executive session is expected to last 45 minutes. You are all more than welcome to stay. However, council will be adjourning the meeting immediately at the conclusion of the executive session, and no formal action will be taken. No. We're moving into executive session.
I have a question about the executive session.
Oh, if it's relevant to the executive session, ask away.
Okay. Who all is going to be in attendance at the executive session?
Okay, I can answer that. It's the 7 council members, City Manager Matthias, City Attorney George, Bonnie, and Adrian, our HR person.
Okay, I move that the executive session be limited to the council.
That's not typically what we do. Do I have a second first? I have a second from Councilmember Harris. All right, discussion, I'll start with it. The review is for our city manager. He definitely should be present. There's usually legalities issued, so we obviously need City Attorney George. There's also HR issues where we need the HR person, AJ, and as well as Bonnie Wilkins. And this has been this is what we've done for the last 4 years that I've been on council. It's worked well, and it's the appropriate staff. So that's what I have to say. Other comments before we take a vote? Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, in, I don't know, 30 years of, I've never been in an employee review where the employee to be reviewed basically was present the entire time. So I would strongly favor limiting the discussion to, if you need to have somebody to record minutes and an attorney, great, but it seems to me inappropriate for the employee to be reviewed to be present. It is impossible to speak with candor under those circumstances.
Councilmember Harris, I've never been to an employee review that I wasn't present in, just so you know.
Well,
all right. Is there any more discussion? Councilmember Oxley, do you have any more discussion before we take a vote? Okay, I just saw your green light, so I wasn't sure. All right. With that, all those in favor of the motion to only have the city council in the meeting, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Harris. I see Councilmember Oxgar. All those opposed? I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. Motion fails 5-2.